Morbid fact. This was the last photo taken of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur just minutes before he was gunned down on Las Vegas Boulevard in 1996. Tupac was hit 4 times and was put on life support at a nearby hospital where he would end up dying a week later. His body was cremated the next day, and members of his rap group Outlaws smoked some of his ashes after mixing them with some kush. Here's a 1907 mugshot of Bertha Baranda after she was convicted of mayhem for slicing off her husband's penis with a straight razor. In 1939, Gone with the Wind actress Hattie McDaniel became the first ever African American to win an Oscar. When she was dying from cancer in 1952, her final wish was to be buried in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in LA. But the request was ultimately denied since the cemetery had a strict all-white policy at the time. When he was a sophomore in college, NBA legend Karl Malone had a child with a 13-year-old girl. The son grew up to become NFL player Demetrius Bell, but he said he only met his dad on one occasion after graduating high school, where Malone told him that it was too late to start a father-son relationship and that he would have to make his way on his own. In 2007, 73-year-old Sherman Sizemore was undergoing surgery to have his gallbladder removed. An anesthesiologist had given him drugs to paralyze his muscles, but forgot to administer the anesthesia until 16 minutes after the first cut was made, meaning he felt everything. Doctors later gave him an amnesiac in hopes that he would forget the trauma. In 1993, a Canadian lawyer named Gary Hoy claimed to a group of students that the windows in his building were unbreakable. To prove this, he threw himself at the window at full force. While the glass didn't break, the frame popped out and Gary fell 24 stories to his death. The man who once had the longest beard in the world died after he accidentally stepped on it and broke his neck. In 2010, an MI6 agent was found naked and dead inside of a padlocked bag in his London home. Police concluded that he accidentally locked himself in the bag and died as a result. In Houston, Texas, a 19-year-old man named Rashad died while attempting to play Russian roulette. Apparently, he didn't know how the game worked since he tried using a semi-automatic pistol instead of a revolver. Aeschylus was an ancient Greek playwright who is known today as the father of the tragedy genre. After receiving a prophecy that said he would die from a falling object, he spent most of his time outdoors. But he was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise on him, mistaking his bald head for a rock suitable for shattering the shell of a reptile. Famous philosopher Kurt Gödel had an obsessive fear of being poisoned and therefore only ate food that was cooked by his wife. So when his wife went to the hospital for an extended stay, Gödel stopped eating completely and promptly starved to death. The first person to ever jump off the Brooklyn Bridge was a professional high diver. He wanted to demonstrate that people don't die simply from falling through the air, and he was correct. He fell 135 feet through the air without a problem, but hitting the water killed him immediately. In 2003, a skeleton measuring 6 inches long was found in a remote part of Chile's Atacama Desert. Due to its elongated skull and rather developed bones considering its size, the specimen was initially rumored to be an alien. But after extensive testing, scientists determined that it was more likely the skeleton of a stillborn human girl that had close to 70 different genetic mutations. According to a recent study, people in the US who were born before 1996 have a slightly lower IQ than those born afterwards. This is due to the negative effects of leaded gasoline, which was finally banned completely on January 1st, 1996. In 1924, gifted college students Leopold and Loeb planned out the perfect murders simply to demonstrate their superior intellectual abilities. But after kidnapping and murdering a child, they left an abundance of evidence and were swiftly convicted of murder. Actor Mickey Rourke was a heartthrob of the 1980s until he quit his acting career to become a boxer. But after multiple facial injuries and botched plastic surgeries, he now looks like he's wearing a mask of someone else's face. Earlier last year, an Alabama man was arrested for criminal littering after putting flowers on the grave of his fiancée who died in a car crash in 2021. While filming an episode of Storage Wars, Daryl Sheets once discovered a dead body wrapped in plastic. Police later determined that the previous owner had murdered his wife and locked her body in a storage unit. Serial killer Edmund Kemper became friends with the very police officers that were investigating him. They called him Big Ed at the local bar and never would have suspected him in 1,000 years. When he initially confessed to being a serial killer, they laughed at him because they thought he was pulling a prank. Here are some morbidly wholesome facts about Robin Williams. When Sharon Osbourne was sick in bed with cancer and giving up, Ozzy asked Robin Williams to come visit her. Robin randomly hopped in her sick bed, and her family instantly went from crying to laughing hysterically. Robin cheered her up so much that she went back to chemo the very next day. When Superman actor Christopher Reeve was left paralyzed after a horse riding accident, Robin Williams was one of the first people to visit him in the hospital. He came in dressed as a doctor and told Reeve he was there to give him a rectal exam, causing him to laugh for the first time in weeks. When Robin Williams first met Coco the gorilla in 2001, he made her smile for the first time in 6 months. When Robin died in 2014, Coco overheard the news and said the word cry in sign language. In 2020, a sunbathing mom from Georgia was just seconds away from being crushed to death by a falling tree. If her son hadn't told her to run, she most likely would have died instantly. A Texas man was chasing a rattlesnake on his lawn that eventually slithered underneath his old shed. Upon investigating with a forklift, he discovered that it was completely infested with dozens of rattlesnakes. And finally, this is why you should always check the toilet bowl before plopping down on the seat. Yep, that's a scorpion. And apparently you shouldn't flush a scorpion down the toilet since they could survive in water for like 2 days. Have fun. During World War II, Native American man Joe Medicine Crow completed all 4 feats required to become a war chief. Touching an enemy without killing him, taking an enemy's weapon from him, leading a war party, and stealing an enemy horse. He overachieved on the last one by stealing 50 horses from the Nazi SS, singing a traditional Crow honor song as he rode off. In 1941, a Polish soldier named Witold Pilecki volunteered to be placed in a concentration camp to prove to the Allies that the Holocaust was real. While a prisoner at Auschwitz, he organized resistance movements and eventually escaped after 3 years of imprisonment. Until he escaped, little had been known by the rest of the world about how the Germans ran the camps, as they were thought to be internment camps or large prisons rather than death camps. Tourists on the water in Norway were taking photographs of a friendly beluga whale when a girl suddenly dropped her iPhone in the water. That's when the whale miraculously dove back down and managed to retrieve the phone in its mouth. Here's a video of a green heron that learned how to catch fish using bread that was given to it by tourists. The bird is even smart enough to pull the bread back when the larger fish approach. There's a gorilla at Calgary Zoo that can dance. Dance! And finally, in 2019, a pet cat from Colombia was caught on camera saving the life of a 1-year-old boy. The toddler had escaped from his crib and was crawling towards a flight of 12 stairs before the cat sprang to action and redirected him. Troy Hurtabeast devoted his life to developing a suit that could fend off a grizzly bear, and was even permitted to go one-on-one with a 320-pound female grizzly. But sadly, he died in a car explosion just days before he was able to test out the design. It's rumored that when a pope dies, it's tradition to hit him in the head with a silver hammer to ensure that he's dead and not just sleeping. A pet Sphinx cat named Jazzy Purse had to have both her eyes removed and now looks like a spooky skeleton cat. During a soccer match in 1989, 96 people were killed at Hillsborough Stadium in England after being crushed due to overcrowding, many of whom died while standing up. 22 years later, Stephen Whittle became the 97th victim. He had sold his ticket to a friend who ended up dying during the disaster. In June of 2021, a massive 1,174-carat diamond was discovered by miners in Botswana. It's the 3rd largest diamond ever found and can likely fetch more than $60 million at auction. Here's a rare sighting of the tadpole shrimp, a prehistoric creature that has existed on Earth for more than 500 million years. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, there's a rare breed of dog that has 2 noses. They were likely bred and brought there by Spanish conquistadors back in the 16th century. Costing around $300 per pound, A5 olive Wagyu beef is quite literally the rarest steak in the world. It's extremely rare to see a living giant squid, but in 2015, one swam into a harbor near Tokyo. A diver jumped in and swam alongside it to capture some incredible footage of the massive creature. When going to battle against enemies riding elephants, the Indian Rajputs would put fake trunks on their horses, making them appear as baby elephants which the enemy's elephants refused to attack. During the Cold War, CIA agents used a secret method of communication based on how their shoelaces were tied. In 1973, the U.S. Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosive charges. But the ball never made it to the battlefield since the explosives gave it an unpredictable flight. Many warships used to be painted like optical illusions. The purpose of this dazzle camouflage was not to conceal the ship, but rather to mislead the enemy by making the ship's speed and range more difficult to estimate, much to the same effect as patterns seen on zebras, giraffes, and jaguars. While filming a scene from The Mummy during which his character was being hanged, Brendan Fraser nearly died. The rope was tied too tightly around the actor's neck, and Brendan quickly passed out when it constricted his carotid artery. If the film crew hadn't acted quickly, he likely would have died within minutes. Margaret Hamilton, the woman who played the Wicked Witch of the West, was badly burned while filming The Wizard of Oz. She returned after a stay at the hospital, but refused to do any more scenes involving fire. So her stunt double took her place in one scene where she rode a prop that ended up spewing smoke and exploding, sending her to the hospital for 11 days and nearly costing her a leg. In 1944, the Ghost Army was created as the first tactical deception unit in the U.S. Army. They used inflatable tanks, fake radio traffic, and loudspeakers blaring sound effects to throw off their enemies. The Ghost Army was able to make a force seem 30 times larger than its actual size, often sending the Nazis retreating. A U.S. naval destroyer once won a battle against a Japanese submarine by throwing potatoes at them, which the Japanese thought were grenades and quickly retreated. Ancient Persian leader Cambyses II once used cats to defeat an Egyptian army. Knowing that the Egyptians viewed felines as sacred, he brought hundreds of cats to the front lines and had his soldiers paint them on their shields. The Egyptians simply refused to fight and were easily defeated as a result. These are some morbid facts about Disney World. Disney's first water park, called River Country, closed permanently in 2001 after an 11-year-old boy died from a brain-eating parasite he got in the lake. The park still lies completely abandoned to this day. The actor who used to play Gaston at Disney World Orlando accidentally killed himself by attempting to shoot fireworks off his head. Disney World is one of the most popular places on Earth for scattering ashes. It happens so frequently that employees have a special code word to report it for cleanup. A study conducted in 2016 concluded that the Thunder Mountain Railroad reliably helps people pass kidney stones. A Florida photographer captured this incredible image of an owl that raised a duckling after mistaking the egg for its own. Concerned that the owl would eat the duckling once it realized the situation, a local wildlife sanctuary agreed to take care of the baby bird. This bulb of garlic didn't have separate cloves. It grew as just one solid piece. This rare phenomenon known as ice eggs occurs when ice is rolled over by the perfect combination of wind and water. This rare filament... Wait a minute, medium well? Ugh. This is one of the only known video recordings of the golden langur, an extremely rare species of monkey that Himalayan tribes have long considered to be sacred. Researchers say they work extra hard to avoid human contact, making them extremely difficult to observe in the wild. Morbid facts about Michael Jackson. As a child, Michael's father Joseph would constantly torment him about his appearance, often calling him Fat Nose. Michael went on to have 4 rhinoplasties and was insecure about his appearance his entire life. On one occasion in the 1960s, Joe wanted to teach his kids a lesson about leaving the windows open at night. So when little Michael was asleep, his father climbed through the window wearing a mask and screamed at him. From that point on, Michael would have recurring nightmares about being kidnapped from his bedroom. But the abuse didn't stop there. Joe would also hold onto a belt while the Jackson 5 rehearsed, ready to strike his children if one of them made a mistake. Michael was so terrified of his father that he would sometimes throw up just from his presence. Michael once said that he felt the safest while performing on stage since his father wouldn't be able to beat him in front of a crowd. As part of a project called As If Nothing Happened, an AI drew Michael Jackson as if he were still alive and had never received plastic surgery. Michael suffered from severe insomnia and didn't receive any real sleep in the 60 days leading up to his death. Instead, his doctor had been putting him under general anesthesia every night, which would end up killing him at the age of 50. The details revealed in Michael Jackson's autopsy report were nothing short of disturbing. He was almost completely bald and had a number of cosmetic tattoos, including permanent eyeliner and lip liner. He had puncture wounds all over his body and had nothing but pills in his stomach at the time of death. During an interview shortly before his death, Michael admitted that he would often talk to child mannequins just to feel less alone. He would also frequently cry at the sight of kids playing in the park, since it was something that Michael would never experience himself. Here's a 1985 prediction of what Michael would look like in the year 2000 versus what he actually ended up looking like. Michael had a meeting scheduled at the top of one of the Twin Towers on 9/11, but after talking with his mom on the phone all night, he overslept and missed the appointment. In 2003, a supermarket was once completely shut down so that Michael could live out his lifelong dream of shopping like an ordinary person. All the other shoppers were either actors or his friends, and they paid no attention to Michael. He played around the store like a child and even compared the experience to going to Disneyland. In 1991, retired truck driver Terry Horton found a painting at a California thrift shop that she purchased for $5. She thought it was hideous and planned on throwing darts at it until one of her friends suggested getting it checked out. It ended up being a priceless painting by Jackson Pollock worth right around $50 million. In 2015, a man swimming near Huntington Beach, California was suddenly struck in the back by a great white. After making it ashore and going to the hospital, doctors assured him that he'd be fine. But upon seeing his x-rays, they realized he had a cancerous tumor that they were just barely able to remove in time. In 1923, a young jockey named Frank Hayes suffered a heart attack and suddenly died in the middle of a horse race. But his body remained on the saddle throughout the race, and his horse Sweet Kiss crossed the finish line first. This was the first time that Hayes had ever won a race, and the last. Here's an amazing video of Sandra the orangutan cleaning her enclosure and washing her hands at the Center for Great Apes in Florida. She learned to do this after observing her caretakers do the exact same thing. When this deaf man's cat realized that meowing was useless, the cat learned to communicate with him using signs. This clip shows him successfully requesting a treat at the dinner table. The penduline tit has evolved to develop a creative way for preventing snakes from entering its nest. The bird builds a hidden opening while making the visible entrance lead to an empty pocket that tricks the snake. Once believed to be aliens, this is one of the many 2,000-year-old elongated skulls that were discovered on Paracas Peninsula in Peru. Cranial elongation was commonly practiced by the Paracas people by tightly wrapping the head in cloth during the first few years of life. These toilets in a medieval castle should make you feel thankful for modern plumbing. After Hurricane Dorian, a woman took a walk along a beach in Virginia and found this incredible collection of prehistoric shark teeth just lying on the sand. An incredible discovery was recently made during renovations at a church in Naples, Italy. Behind a 16th century painting called Life of San Severo, workers found a second hidden painting depicting St. George slaying a dragon. Known as R.H. Knoll, this man has the rarest blood type in the world. It's called the golden blood type since it's only been found in 43 people throughout recorded history. Some animals can be born as bilateral gynandromorphs, meaning they're male on one side and female on the other. This is the pyramid capstone of Amenemhat II, one of the only intact pyramidions in the world. In odd cases, dead organisms are filled in with opal rather than mud or stone, creating these mesmerizing fossils. This cat suffers from myostatin-related hypertrophy, a very rare condition that causes muscles to grow excessively large. This steak is so incredibly rare that it could probably use a few more minutes in the sous vide. This insanely rare polka-dotted zebra foal was photographed last year in Kenya. There are only 20 stealth bombers in the world, but this one was caught mid-flight in a Google Maps photo. Talk about a photo bomber. A sheep-herding dog named Casper faced off against 11 threatening coyotes and killed 8 of them on the farm. He then went missing for 2 days, most likely to track the remaining coyotes and finish the job. His vet said he's incredibly lucky to be alive, while his owner agreed to let him retire. During World War II, a German pilot spotted an American pilot's crippled plane in the sky. He noticed that the gunner was dead, the crew was injured, and that they didn't pose any threat. So instead of destroying the plane, he led it to safety and spared the men's lives. 40 years later, the two pilots reunited and became fishing buddies. After TV star Jack Benny died in 1974, his widow Mary received a red rose in the mail. After several days of receiving a new rose each day, she finally called to find out who was sending them. The florist told her that Jack had arranged for a new rose to be sent to her every day until she died. After having his leg amputated due to cancer, 21-year-old Terry Fox started running across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every day he ran a full marathon for 143 straight days until his cancer worsened, forcing him to stop. He ran a total of 3,338 miles, and his fundraiser has helped raise more than $600 million to date. Ludmila Pavlichenko, the most successful female sniper in history, struggled to pull the trigger on her first few kills. But that all changed when she saw a German soldier shoot a young Russian boy. She said, "He was such a nice, happy boy. After that, nothing could stop me." She went on to record 309 confirmed kills against the Nazis. During World War II, American Private Edward Ahrens was found clutching a sword surrounded by 13 dead Japanese soldiers. Clinging onto life, his last words were, "I guess they didn't know I was a Marine." This is the unbelievable anatomy of conjoined twins Brittany and Abby Hensel, who are now 32 years old. Notably, they have 4 lungs but 1 rib cage, 2 hearts, 1 liver, 2 stomachs, 1 set of intestines, 3 kidneys, and 1 pelvis. Modern bulletproof vests were invented in the 1970s by pizza shop owner and former U.S. Marine Richard Davis. He came up with the idea after being wounded when a pizza delivery turned into a shootout. He shot himself in the chest nearly 200 times to test his invention. This is an example of a pillory which was used as a form of capital punishment in 19th century China. The man in the photo can't reach his hands to his face, so he must rely on pedestrians to give him food and water like a dog. The device also made it incredibly hard to sleep comfortably, essentially torturing the prisoner until they died from starvation. At the age of 18, Major Donnie Dunnigan became the youngest ever drill instructor in the U.S. Marines. He served 25 years in the Marine Corps and was wounded several times during his 3 tours in Vietnam, earning himself 13 promotions along with 3 Purple Heart medals and a Bronze Star. Throughout his decorated career, he managed to keep secret that he was also the voice of Bambi in the 1942 Disney film. Lepa Radic was a 17-year-old Yugoslav resistance fighter who was sentenced to death in 1943 for shooting at the Nazis. As the rope was being tied around her neck, she was offered a way out of the gallows if she simply revealed the names of her leaders. But she declined, saying they'd reveal themselves when they came to avenge her. In 1834, a 13-year-old boy died in San Francisco after a circus clown swung him around by the heels. In 2007, California woman Jennifer Strange entered a radio show contest called Hold Your Wee for a Wee, in which the person who drank the most water over a 4-hour span without urinating would win a Nintendo Wii. But after consuming nearly 2 gallons, Jennifer soon complained of headaches and dizziness before dying a few hours later from water poisoning. The most valuable tooth in the world belonged to Sir Isaac Newton, who died nearly 300 years ago. In 1816, it sold for $3,600, which equates to more than $75,000 today. After fears that they were wiped out by bushfires, the rare pygmy possum was thankfully rediscovered in 2020. Located in various museums, these are the only 3 authentic Jolly Roger flags in the world. They were flown to identify pirate ships before or during attacks in the early 18th century. Spotted Lake in Canada features distinctive patterns due to its high concentrations of various minerals. The Formosan clouded leopard was declared legally extinct in 2013 after having no sightings since 1983. But in 2019, it was spotted for the first time in nearly 40 years in eastern Taiwan. The first chainsaw was invented by 2 Scottish doctors in the year 1780. It was originally used to help open up the pelvis during childbirth. In 1958 North Carolina, a white girl told her parents that she kissed 2 black boys aged 9 and 7 on the cheeks. The girl's father then arranged a mob to go to the boys' homes where they threatened to lynch them and their parents. Soon enough, police showed up where they proceeded to arrest and severely beat the young boys. Charged with rape, they were placed in jail for 6 days without being allowed any contact with their parents. They were detained for nearly 4 months before finally being pardoned by the governor. It's infamously known as the kissing case of 1958. In 1999, Martin Lawrence collapsed from heat stroke while jogging in heavy clothing to prepare for his role in Big Mama's House. He recovered in the hospital after entering a 3-day coma on a ventilator due to his body temperature reaching 107 degrees. This map published by FEMA shows the potential U.S. targets in a nuclear war scenario. If you're from the Northeast like me, you might want to start building that bunker. Here's a photo of 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. being led to the room in which he was executed in 1944. He was given the electric chair after being convicted of murdering 2 white girls in South Carolina. The all-white jury determined he was guilty after only 10 minutes of deliberation, and he became the youngest person to be executed in U.S. history. Stinney was exonerated 70 years later after a court finally recognized that he'd received an unfair trial. This photo is the definition of fear. A young woman from LA was evading a home intruder by hiding on her roof, where she managed to grab her phone and call 911. She said her greatest fear was that the intruder would try to hide where she was hiding. Luckily, authorities soon had the area surrounded and the man is now in prison. Here's some disturbing footage of an old lady with a knife approaching the front door of a New Jersey home at 3 a.m. As creepy as the footage may seem, the poor woman is most likely just suffering from dementia. And finally, this is why you should always be aware of your surroundings while scuba diving. This South African salvage diver nearly had his head taken off by a great white, but luckily the shark wasn't hungry at the time.